All right, we're in the innovation phase now. One very important innovation that needs to come to places that need it is transportation, right? So I want to show you a video. This is another StoryFest finalist done by Purdue. Where's Purdue? Purdue? Where are you? Did you skip out just when I'm going to play your... Oh, in the back. Okay. There they are. And where's the other Purdue? Okay. All right, here. This is produced by Jeremy Robinson and David Wilson. They are representing several years that this team has been working on this project. And you'll see why in just a moment that it's become one of our finalists. Take a look.
We are a part of a student team at Purdue University that has developed, in partnership with an NGO in Cameroon, a multi-purpose vehicle that we call the Practical Utility Platform, or PUP for short.
The PUP is designed to carry 2,000 pounds in the bed. It can be driven off-road and on-road with speeds up to 20 miles per hour.
The engine easily powers attachments like pumps, corn grinders, and generators, and like a tractor, the PUP can pull small field implements such as planters and cultivators.
The design only requires parts available in Cameroon. The use of local materials and only basic manufacturing requirements keeps the vehicle cost under $2,000 US.
Both in the US and in Cameroon, the PUPs have been rigorously tested off-road with heavy loading and for endurance and pulling capabilities. The next phase of the project is to scale up and to expand to other interested partners who have similar rural transportation and power needs.
Locally manufactured PUPs can provide added value to rural delivery businesses, smallholder farmer cooperatives, entrepreneurs, NGOs, and municipalities all across sub-Saharan Africa.
You can help us move from prototype to production.
We can work together to provide Africa with affordable transportation and power.
Will you join us?
How awesome is that? Is John Lumpkins? John, you've been working on this for how long with these guys?
First visit was in 2009.
First visit in 2009.
We had a lot of failures before we got this far.
Well, you got to fail fast before you're going to get success, right? How much does this cost again?
Depending on how well we can bargain. If we go there and bargain as being foreigners, about $1,700, but we can build it in country for about $1,200.
And what would a full tractor cost?
Very expensive because you'd import it and there's import duties. So
right,
$20,000
so
to $30,000.
Tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
So compliments to the production team, compliments to the idea, and also notice what they did with this story. There was a call to action, right? Join us. Did this go up on Kickstarter or Indiegogo or something?
No, we did it for a Global Development Lab USA video competition a couple months ago.
And for this competition.
Yes.
So bravo. Thanks to you very much.
Thank you.
So now let's think about other innovations, right? And join and have this panel. And I'm going to introduce the moderator of this panel. Her name is Julie Borlaug. Anybody know the last name Borlaug? All right, somebody tell me what the last name Borlaug relates to.
Father of the Green Revolution, Norman Borlaug.
What did he win?
Nobel Prize.
Nobel Prize. Why?
Because he's feeding the world and fed the world.
Fed the world. Fed 1 billion people is what it was said at the time. We talked back then about the population bomb and how the world was not going to be able to feed the fewer billions that it had. And look at where we are now. So while we have 880 million people food insecure, think of the numbers that we are feeding. I'm going to let Julie Borlaug introduce her panel. I'm delighted to tell you she's part of the Planet Forward family. She's on our advisory board too, and she has got more energy. I'm sorry, she's got more energy than your pup. She's got lots of energy. Ladies and gentlemen, Julie.
We are going to do quick introductions due to time limits. And Minnesota and Iowa State, you better have known who Borlaug was since you're Borlaug Legacy Universities. I'm going to start with the ladies first. And I'm going to introduce Sue McCloskey. She is the owner of one of the largest dairy farms. You heard 15,000 cattle. There's also 15,000 acres. And they also have one of the largest agrotourism programs in the U.S.?
It has to be at least one of the largest.
At least one of the largest. Jacqueline is her daughter. I'm going to call her Jack from here out. She is a sophomore here at George Washington, and she's in the Elliott School of International Affairs, and she's also an intern at the World Wildlife Federation. Next to me is David Hollinrake. He's VP of Marketing at Bayer CropScience, U.S. And then we have Pete Johnson, who is the owner and a farmer of Pete's Greens. It's 4-season organic vegetable farm in Vermont, and they work in Vermont, Boston, and New York. And then we have the drone guy. So, and I made him bring his drone out, but he's not going to be able to fly it today for you all. That's Dr. Phil Ferguson. He's the VP of Product Development at PrecisionHawk. So we're going to start right now. I am going to go to questions. I want to take the pride that I engage the students the most of any other panel. So again, Borlaug Legacy Universities, if there's not a question, I am coming to you. And Iowa State, you know I will pick on you. So let's start with the definition of sustainability. No one really understands. It's a word we use all the time, but what does it mean? So I'm going to start with David. What does sustainability mean to you?
Wow, sustainability. You know, for me, it's very personal. So I grew up on a family farm in Illinois, and really my goal in life was to be a farmer. And we didn't have the wherewithal to enable me to be a farmer. So for me, sustainability starts with preserving the family farm and enabling youth to really get engaged and be involved in agriculture. So that's the starting place, Julie. Obviously, from a macro sense, the ability to conserve resources, whether that's land, whether that's be able to participate in growing food when we have less water or more water, and preserving other nutrients is quite important. But the bigger drive here, and where sustainability becomes challenged, I think, with this discussion, is we have an obligation to feed the world. So the two kind of collide, in the conservation of resources and the enablement of feeding the world and feeding the 9.6 billion people by 2050. So that, to me, is the challenge.
Okay. Jack?
To me, sustainability is a moving target. You're never going to really reach the end goal of sustainability because you should always be reaching for more and more. So what sustainability meant 40 years ago isn't what it means today, nor will it be what it means 40 years from today. So it's something that we're constantly reaching for, and we need a lot of creativity to do it.
That's a great answer. Sue?
To me, sustainability is a confluence of knowledge, ingenuity, hard work, hard decisions, all meant to make this world viable for all of Earth's citizens, animals, plants, and people.
Pete?
It's one of my least favorite words because it's bandied about, but and to me it's all in context. Like a lot of us flew here. Is that sustainable? No, depending on how you're looking at it. But we're all sort of in our own place and time, working on what we're working on and doing the best we have with the resources we have. For me, it's been a lot about the financial sustainability of my company and paying people enough to keep them going. And but ecologically, there's lots of different versions of it, and we're all sort of doing our best, but have a long way to go.
So I think that you can sum up sustainability as the smart and efficient use of what precious resources we have left, and that we can do that with information in our hands.
Great. Okay, I'm going to go to Sue. You have a phenomenal farm and a phenomenal operation, and it is totally sustainable. So if you can briefly comment how you got to where you are, and then also you use all farming methods. So you utilize organic, but you also utilize innovation and technology on the other side. So can you comment on that as well?
Yes, so I think what makes us kind of unique within the agricultural community, and especially in the dairy industry, is that we take all of our cow's manure, which typically for an animal, if you're in animal agriculture, it's kind of a liability for you because you've got 15,000 cows. That means 15,000 cows worth of poop every day that you have to manage. So we about 12 or 14 years ago, we installed our first manure digester. So we take all the manure from our cows, we put it into an anaerobic digester, basically a big environment that does not have oxygen in it. There's anaerobic bacteria that are within the manure. And basically, those bacteria eat the solids in the manure. They produce a methane gas. We collect that methane gas, preventing it from going to atmosphere. And then we do two things with that. We create electricity, and we also create a renewable biofuel. Basically, we create our own compressed natural gas that we run a fleet of 42 tractor trailers that haul all of our milk to markets in Indiana, Tennessee, and Kentucky. We take about 7 million miles off of the road, or the equivalent of 2 million gallons of diesel every year that is saved from having to be mined from the earth.
So on your farming methods with your organic side and then the other methods you use, will you briefly comment on that?
So we've always been conventional dairy farmers, but we understood that there's a big desire for organic within the country. And so we wanted to understand from the dairy side specifically what that meant. So we have an 800 cow organic dairy farm alongside of our conventional farms. The organic dairy farms, basically it takes about twice the resources to produce the same gallon of milk. And you know, I'm not against organic at all. I think that organic is a great movement because it brings knowledge, and it takes all kinds of farming to create really the answer to what sustainable is. But it's interesting because, you know, there's a lot of confusion, you know, amongst people, amongst young people especially. What does organic really mean? And so for dairy, it just means that it takes a lot more, and you've got the same basic, you know, gallon of milk. The nutrition is the same in both conventional and organic. There's absolutely no difference. So it's just a more difficult way to farm. We would never have an organic farm if we didn't have conventional farms right next door, because of the fact that if a cow were to get pneumonia on our organic farm, we could never treat her with antibiotics. Okay. So what we do is we move her over to our conventional farms. She'll never go back to the organic farm. We're able to give her the proper medicine, proper treatment. She recovers and then just lives the rest of her life on our conventional farms.
So, Mr. Drone, Phil, everyone, if you're not familiar, big ag, big data, the digital farming revolution is a very huge topic right now. And then we have what's going on in California with the drought and the fact that people just realized that agriculture takes a lot of water, which is surprising that no one realized that prior. So, so can you explain how precision agriculture is going to address these issues?
Absolutely. So, and again, I think I can sum that up very quickly and just say information is power. When we have information about what's growing in the field, about the kinds of things that are happening in that field, we can make better decisions. And that's where we see drones taking a large part in precision agriculture, is giving people the information they need to make better decisions. And when you make better decisions, you make better use of the little resources that we have, like water, like nitrogen, like any kind of fertilizer or pesticide. And as we've all been talking about today already, and I'm sure we'll continue to talk about, not only are those resources expensive, but more use of them leads to problems with the environment. So if we give the information that the farmers need to make those choices better, we have a much more sustainable future.
I like your answers. They're short. Hint. Okay, Pete. I'm going to, 2 parts real quick. How do you define organic? And then we've heard from the GMO, the Monsantos today. We have Bayer here, who utilize all farming methods. How do you think organic farming is the answer to feeding 9 billion people?
I don't. I'm an organic farmer, but I'm not a zealot, and I'm very open to lots of different angles. I have lots of conventional dairy farming neighbors, and I think organic farming could feed the world if lots of us and lots of the developing world wanted to go back to a very different kind of lifestyle, and I just don't see that happening. I have a relatively big diversified vegetable farm. We crop 150 acres in vegetables. We grow some other stuff as well. There's a new movement of like 1-acre farms run by 1 person or 2 people, all hand tools. I think it's the most efficient way to grow food, actually. It's extremely low input. The net return per hour worked can be very high. But there's only so many people that seem to want to live like that right now. So it's an interesting, I enjoy having my farm in the midst of this bigger conventional dairy all around me and sort of noticing the contrasts and how it all works. And I think that just the way the human mentality is developing, we don't have enough people to farm the way you have to farm for it to be organic.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, Jack, you come from the Midwest and a farming background, and here you are at George Washington University in an urban area where probably the majority of the student body doesn't fully understand the concept of farming and how the food comes to the table. Can you explain your experiences, some of the questions you've been asked? And I know that you've been asked if all 15,000 cattle have names, so it's a starting point. So what are your experiences?
Well, when I first moved to DC and people would ask me, you know, what's your major, what do you want to do with your life? And my answer was dairy farming. They were really confused. They would ask, why are you here? Why aren't you at Purdue, which is only 40 minutes away from me? But the answer is because I believe that dairy farming and what my parents are doing today has a solution for the world. There is a solution for the world. So I wanted to come here. I wanted to study international affairs. I wanted to get a full understanding of the world and its relations. That way I could bring dairy farming to that level. So that's why I'm here.
Just an example of one question.
Oh, one question?
Yes.
Oh, gosh, there are so many. Well, the funniest one I can think of is somebody asked me if I rode horses in my hometown. I said yes, and they said that must take a really long time to get around. And I kind of just shook my head and walked away. But dairy farming, most people ask me, how do you do it? How do you milk 15,000 cows?
By hand.
Yeah, every one of them by hand. No,
That is a joke, by the way.
Sorry. Forget to explain that sometimes. I explain our whole process, and people are really amazed, especially people around here who are so kind of embedded into this lifestyle of organic because it's so trustworthy. And when I take that confusion that they have about dairy farms as big as our 15,000 cow dairy farm, it puts trust into our dairy farm as well. And they see conventional dairy farming as a trustworthy source of their daily protein. So.
Thank you. Okay, David. My grandfather had a lot of critics throughout his career, and I know Bayer comes up against a lot of critics. So can you talk about that, how you handle that, and then also how you see the innovations at Bayer helping with sustainability and climate change?
Yeah, actually, I think they're connected, Julie. I mean, your grandfather was an innovator. If you think about what drives us, our purpose is Bayer Science for a Better Life. We're an innovation company, and I believe with innovation, with new thinking, you're going to have critics. And you know, where we've made mistakes in the past, and I'll put myself out there as being one who's personally made mistakes here, is we haven't invited critics into the discussion. We haven't invited folks to the same table. And that's a big mistake that we've made as an industry. We have a tremendous amount of innovation, and innovation is what drives the ability for us to provide farmers tools to help feed the world. But we haven't spoken about it. We haven't come to conferences like this and understood the opposition and taken the questions, and shame on us. So that's why we're involved. That's why we think conferences like this and dialogues that can emanate from this are so critical to our future.
Great, thank you. Okay, student questions. We don't have a lot of time, but I want to get through, and I'm going to push the clock a little, and I know Frank probably was going to expect that.
Don't stand in the way of a crowd.
And Frank knows me so well, he'll get up here and stop me. Okay, so questions, please. You have a phenomenal panel. We have a lot of issues, and we'd like to get through those with you. So who has a question?
So I'm wondering about, you're talking about taking all of the manure and using that, using basically machines to be able to utilize energy from that. And I'm wondering if you see that as also being something that medium and smaller scale farms could apply, not just people who have 15,000 cows worth of manure.
That's a great question, because that kind of goes back to, a lot of people look at us as big, evil corporate non-family dairy farms. And when my husband and I started, our first dairy farm was 300 cows. And back then we were small and beloved and quaint and good people. And then we kind of succeeded and grew. And all of a sudden one day we were corporate. And our values never changed. We always have taken care of our animals, we've taken care of the environment. We're able to do that even better now because we're bigger and we have that scalability. But to answer your question, my husband Mike, who's in the back there, runs a sustainability council for the dairy industry. And we openly share all of our knowledge about our digesters. In fact, University of Illinois, Southern Illinois, invited him to speak at a massive open line course. And the idea there is that we hope that there's tons and thousands of people who really see that, because the more eyes that get on it, the more people are going to think about it, and the more we're going to drive innovation into what we're doing to drive the costs and the scalability back to a 300-cow dairy farmer.
Right. Okay, we have drone guy here. Someone must, have a question for him. That's what you've become, drone guy, aren't you?
I was just about to ask the question about the drones, actually.
Great.
So yeah, what does this plane do? What sort of data does it collect?
Sure. So I appreciate the question. Thank you. So at PrecisionHawk, well, it's true that I am a drone guy, and I get introduced as Mr. Drone.
He's also an MIT grad, so.
He's also Dr. Phil.
Yeah, and I'm Dr. Phil. I can tell you about love, too. But so at PrecisionHawk, it's less about the drone and more about the information that comes out the back end of it. So we provide at PrecisionHawk a platform, a hardware platform to put sensors in the air. We have sensors that range from standard visual sensors, hyperspectral sensors, multispectral sensors, LiDARs, thermal sensors. We can tell when cows have fevers. But the most important thing that we do then is we take all that data and we turn it into the answer, or the little bit of information what we like to call actionable information, the thing that somebody can take and actually do something about. So it's like treating a cold before it turns into pneumonia, for instance, right? And the reason why we do that is because we understand that nobody knows what to do with a terabyte drive full of images of their farm, right? What do you do with that, right? But somebody certainly knows what to do if you get told, this is the area of your farm that would benefit the most from, say, water or nitrogen or pesticide or whatever it is. And so that's really what we're focused on. And so our, what we call the stack, starts with hardware, but most importantly, it ends with that insight into what the data actually means and what you can do about it.
I have time for one more question. Who's got the greatest question in the audience? Right? Yes. Just yell.
Okay. Julie, your grandfather was Norman Borlaug, and that's really awesome. And I think I was just wondering, this is your grandpa. What is one piece of information that when you were a kid that leads you here today? Because you had a choice whether or not to continue on, and you personally made the choice to be here.
Okay. Well, for students, education is the most important thing he taught me, and that no one can take your education away, and utilize your education. The other thing he taught me was one man, and hopefully the next Norm Borlaug is Norma Borlaug, but can change the world. Now, he didn't do it again. He did it with a team that supported him and believed in him. And then the other thing, that youth should be considered important, should have a place at the table, and should be a part of the solution. And he was a firm believer. If he was here, he would have you all out in a different room and spend hours talking to you. So those are some of the concepts I learned. Before we leave, and Frank, you should be so proud of me right now. Everyone on here on this panel is using innovation, whether it's a retro innovation, whether it's state-of-the-art, forward-thinking, precision ag, whether we're using GMOs, anything. I'd like you to engage them at lunch. Ask them what they're doing, why they're doing it the way they are. And then also remember, in farming and feeding the world, it takes all forms of agriculture as long as they're smart and sustainable and appropriate for where they happen. So thank you all for being here, and thank you all.
I want you to imagine this thing flying over 15,000 head of cattle, right?
Yes.
And think how amazing this is, and spotting the single animal that has a fever.
That's amazing.
Think about that, all right? Think about this thing flying over a field of 1,000 acres, 8,000 acres, and finding the spot that's driest. Could you do that?
Right. Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
And that's where you water?
That's right.
And how much water can that save?
A tremendous amount. It's
Right?
all about sustainability, right?
Do we have any worries about privacy here? Is there a downside to this?
Yes, but you know what? We've overcome that in society before. We can overcome it with this as well.
All right. Lunch? Do we get plane rides at lunch?
Sure, yeah. Sign up.
Can you deliver our food to us that
Absolutely.
way? Okay,
Yeah,
very
let's do
good.
it.
Thank you guys very, very much. Pete, I want to grab Pete here. While they're walking out, how do you farm 4 seasons in the Northeast Kingdom? Are you in the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont? That's like the coldest part, right?
It's the coldest part.
How many feet of snow did you have this year?
Lots and lots.
So how do you keep going for 4 seasons?
It's snowing today as well.
No way.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
We have lots of greenhouses. We have lots of different techniques. We try not to burn fuel very much in the winter to heat our greenhouses because that's a poor carbon trade-off. But a layer of plastic, much like the Peru guys showed, is a tremendous thing, and it extends season greatly, and is very low input. It lasts for 4 years, typically, a sheet of plastic, and the amount of food you can grow compared to trucking it from California or further is a very good carbon trade-off.
Can we get anybody to come work with you? Or you have any internships or summer jobs?
We do.
If anybody's interested?
Yeah, come find me at lunch and we can talk.
Okay, there's another one.
I'll cut through the red tape like USDA.